We are a part of Decarcerate PA.
That's right.
We want to stop the building of prisons. We want to build schools. We want to save our children, and we're going to start today. Am I right?
So Heery International has this contract to build an incredibly expensive prison for the state of Pennsylvania, and we as Decarcerate PA want to say that we want to see community reinvestment. We want to see that money spent on hospitals, on schools, on positive things that will make us a safer, happier, healthier society. So we have an alternative blueprint here, a proposal for what we think Heery could use to construct a new building. Instead of the prison in Graterford, we would like to see Graterford School. So here's the blueprint. There are some quotations from incarcerated people whose voices have been excluded from this whole process. And we're going to drop it off for Heery International.
We're here specifically today in solidarity with the call put out in Oakland, inspired in many ways by Kevin Cooper. He's a prisoner on death row at San Quentin. And the call was for February 20th to be a national Occupy Day in support of prisoners. Or in other words, Occupy for prisoners.
That's right.
The call identified the need for explicit space in Occupy and any organizing of the 99% today to include the work of those inside and outside of prisons fighting to stop the prison industrial complex.
He said, when I heard the call just raised in Oakland, California to occupy the prison, I gasped. It was not an especially radical call, but it was at the right time. For prisons have become a metaphor, a shady side, if you will, of America. With oceans of words about freedom and the reality that the U.S. is the world's leader of incarceration, it's more than time for the focus of attention of the Occupy movement. It means social change or it means nothing. And he ends with, down with the prison industrial complex. Mumia Bujamal.
The formerly incarcerated, convicted people's movement all over the United States is participating in these forums right now today. And we want that to be known, that we are here, we are returning to the communities, and we are here to stay. And I'd like Atiba and Sam to come up here and stand with me because I'd like them to say something also. One of the things that we're doing in the city of Philadelphia is we started the Returning Citizens Voters Movement. We strongly believe that we can change the policy and legislation if we band together and we let our voices be heard. There are 200 to 400,000 formerly incarcerated and convicted people in the city of Philadelphia alone. That is a movement and a block that you cannot deny.
Here in Pennsylvania, we have to understand that Pennsylvania incarcerates more juveniles and gives them life sentences than any other state in the union. So for someone 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old to do something, any type of felony, and be tried as an adult and receive adult time, 20 years, 40 years, a life sentence, right, is to say that, that they can never be rehabilitated. They can never do anything else with their life. I don't believe that. But I believe that a way that you can make it a reality for them not to be able to do anything is by not educating them. If they do not have education, their chance of being able to do anything with their life is slim and none. And that's exactly what Pennsylvania has been doing. Taking the money and the funding out of the education, putting it into the prison system, and making sure that our youth can do very little than what you see on the street. We have to change that. It's up to us.
They're spending so much money building prisons, and then they come back on this community, they had nothing here. Because once you've been convicted, trying to get a job is very difficult, because I went through the whole 9 yards myself.
There was a time when you would go to jail, you can get an education, you can get the things you need, so you don't have to do the things that you did to get there. Now all they're giving you is a job. 19 cents an hour. We're building in jails now, they're making clothing, sold out here in the street, they're making desks, furniture. I mean, they're doing everything that they used to do out here. Yeah. We want to educate,
Not incarcerate!
educate,
Not incarcerate!
educate.
Not incarcerate!
We're here today in front of the Philadelphia offices of Heery International. Heery International is a large corporation that's being paid $315 million to build 2 new prisons on the grounds of SCI Greaterford in Montgomery County. That's right. And these 2 prisons, included in these 2 prisons, is going to be another 100-bed death row, and also a women's unit. And this new prison construction is just part of a bigger plan, a $685 million plan to build 3 new prisons in Pennsylvania and expand 9 others. At a time when the governor's cutting funding for education, for health care, for mental health services, for the things that people depend on, and the things that support our communities instead of tearing them apart. And when Heery International and Governor Corbett came up with this plan to build these new prisons, they didn't consult anyone. They didn't consult the communities. They didn't consult incarcerated people. They didn't consult the families of incarcerated people. They didn't consult any of us here. So we're here today to bring some of those voices to Heery International. You know, we're doing them a favor since they didn't take the time to come to us. We're bringing those voices to Heery.
What we need to do is to hear from some of those prisoners. So we have people that's going to be reading statements of those men and women who are incarcerated.
I think it's a good thing what Decarceration PA is trying to do to eliminate the buildings of prisons and the holding of men long unnecessary periods of time. I'm hoping that the overflow from that will lead to the lifers bill, whereas lifers who have 25 years in and that are 50 years of age will have a chance to get out.
Yeah.
Right. This letter comes from Comer Glass. He's at Greaterford.
The person that wrote this letter is Robert Salim Hobrook. He's in solitary. It goes, if you build it, we will come. The corporation behind us does not see the prisoners that will occupy its $300 million atrocity as human beings, but rather as human profit and capital. And therefore will not stick around to hear cries of brutality, humiliation, and injustice that will echo throughout its gleaming prison, ironically named SCI Phoenix. It is our hope, however, that with its construction will come instead more radical prisoners, more prisoner activists, more prison writers, and more rebellious prisoners in general, who will help expose the injustice that goes on in these human warehouses.
We want to invest in reentry.
Not the penitentiary.
Invest in reentry.
Not the penitentiary.
Did you hear that, Heery? Did you hear that, Heery? All right.
I'm reading a letter from James White Eagle Robinson, who's formerly at Greaterford, PA. And basically what he says is, after discussing the matter and taking a vote, Greaterford Native Americans have agreed to allow Philadelphia Fight and Decarcerate PA to add them to the Decarcerate PA list of formal supporters back in the list of demands in principle. Even though they're severely being hindered in doing more, but will do what they can, the much needed changes of policy calling on Governor Corbett and Pennsylvania's legislators to stop building new prisons, reduce the number of people in prison, and reinvest money in our schools and communities. Thank you, everybody.
I'm Teresa Schultz, the daughter of Russell Schultz, who is now 70 years old, 30 years in solitary confinement without any infractions. He's still 23-hour lockdown and 40 years in prison. Now, Decarcerate PA has stood on the front line, and we're going to tackle this all the way. So if you want to see a change, our meeting is this Monday on the 27th. Yes, change begins now. It begins now. But don't just come here and rally and listen to a couple of statements. I mean, come to the table and make a difference. Of course they hear us. Heery, I know you hear us. But they say that this is it. Oh, let them march. Let them protest. Let them show their signs, but come to the table on Mondays and collaborate with Decarcerate PA this Monday on the 27th, and that's show Corbett and all the other profiteers that we going to make a change. We're going to make a change. All right?
What brought me to this protest is I support the whole Occupy movement and the fact that prisons have become big business as part of that. And in my career, there was no doubt in my mind that street crime can invariably be traced back to white-collar crime. So I am in favor of prisons. We have the wrong people in prison. We need to get the banksters, the Wall Street executives, and the politicians. George Bush, the fact that George Bush is not in prison, along with Dick Cheney and many, many others, shows you the inequality in this country with law enforcement.